Good evening, everyone. I want to welcome you to another edition of the WGSN-DB Going Solo Veterans Corner. And of course, I'm your host, retired Army First Sergeant Paul Holbert, and we're so glad that you could join us this evening, and we really appreciate our audience. As you know, it's because of the audience that we have and the recorded shows that we have been able to make several search lists and have become one of the top shows to watch here in Northern Virginia. Matter of fact, listed among the top 5 at one point. So we have Fairfax County Broadcast. Yeah, and we appreciate that. We always appreciate your participation in our audience. And of course, there's our Apple podcast and Spotify search where we fall. So we appreciate the audience we have and you joining and taking part in our show. Before we get started tonight, I want to take just a moment first to just give a brief thank you to our sponsors, Nationwide IT Services, located in Fairfax, Virginia. One of our great sponsors have been with us for a while, and you'll get a chance to see a little bit more about them during mid-show. I also want to thank Hill & Ponton. Hill & Ponton, the veteran disabilities attorneys located down near Tampa, Florida. And we appreciate both of our sponsors as they are a great help to our show and help us keep things going. I also want to give a shout out to Heroes Bridge. There we go. Thank you, CC. Caught you unawares, but you were always quick. Heroes Bridge in Warrenton, Virginia. Heroes Bridge, of course, is a veteran service organization servicing veterans primarily above the age of 65. They have a lot going on there and trying to build a new community there in the Warrenton community for older veterans. So we appreciate them partnering with us, and we'll take a look and you can see what they're doing. I also want to thank Reese Across America. You know, the interesting thing, of course, if you know Reese Across America, they're the organization that helps set up the wreaths that go to Arlington Cemetery and a lot of the other VA cemeteries during the year at various times for various holidays. So they've got a big job ahead of them. Going Solo Veterans Corner can be heard on their Reese Across America radio network every Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time on such sites as iHeartRadio, Odyssey, and TuneIn. So if you go there to one of those, all you got to do is search Reese, or you can go to the Reese Across America.org website, and they actually have a button there where you can click right on the radio network. So we appreciate our work that we do with them, and hope to continue on for some time to come. All right, so let's talk about tonight's show, and I want to introduce our guest tonight. We're glad to have retired Navy Captain and Aviator Jim Porter. Interesting, Jim graduated from California State College back in 1968 and entered the Navy flight training in October of 1968. That was a quick transition into your flight training. And he spent a 26-year Navy career as an aviator, was flying the Advanced Early Warning E-1B, and then later on transitioned over to flying the E-2C Hawkeye, and we'll let him tell us a little bit about that. He also spent a stint at the Naval Academy as a company officer there, and he finished his naval career at the Pentagon, serving on the Joint Staff. So had a pretty good big career. Earned a master's degree in personal administration from Southern Illinois University and a master's in defense study from the Naval War College, and finally retired from the Navy in 1993. Now, the interesting thing is he went on to actually start a Naval Junior Reserve Training Corps at Osborne Park High School here in Northern Virginia and taught there for 18 years, finally retiring again in 2010. So currently, Jim's been elected as the president of the board of directors for the Freedom Museum in Manassas, Virginia, and he's been there for about 6 years. The interesting thing is that the museum is, the interesting thing is it's actually a very interesting little museum, and we'll talk about that here shortly with Jim. And of course, he is married to another former naval officer, Pamela Porter, and they live in Manassas. And Jim, today I know you mentioned was your 32nd wedding anniversary.
Yep, it sure was. Or sure is.
Yeah, that's incredible. 32 years. But I want to welcome you to the show and thank you for taking the time to join us this evening.
Thank you very much. I'm honored to be here.
Yeah, and hopefully your wife, having been a naval officer herself, understands when duty calls and didn't mind you doing the show on your wedding anniversary.
No, she was pleased that I remembered. So
say at our age at this point, that's what they're happy about, right? So Jim, I see you're in the backdrop there in the museum, and we're going to talk about the museum here in just a little while, but I want to start off a little bit with your Navy career. You finished school at California State College in Long Beach in 1968, and you went right into your training in Pensacola. So what was it that prompted you? How did you end up in the Navy to begin with?
Well, people that were in my shoes in that period of time were being chased by the draft. And so my student deferment had run out. And before my student deferment run out, I received one of those letters that says, greetings. You get to go down to MEPS and sign up to be in one of the services. And so I went down and talked to all of the services, and the Navy gave me the best deal. They said that I had passed the test for flight training, and that after a while, I was received a set of orders to Pensacola for flight training.
Yeah.
And it was pretty unnerving. The times were unnerving, but it was unnerving that I was running down the flight training because I'd never flown before anything or in anything. So my flight, my red-eye flight from LAX to Pensacola was the first time I'd really flown in an airplane.
Oh, wow.
So I was, I think, scared into excellence as a flight student, because I quickly met a lot of people that had a lot more experience than I did. And so I learned the value of being ready for because every flight is a test in flight training, to be ready for every test, because if you flunked one, you may not get another chance.
Yeah.
And I realized that I really liked flying. So that was something that I didn't know until I tried it there in Pensacola. It was challenging, and it was fun. The people that you meet there are all like you are. You had to go through all these hoops, graduate from college, and be pretty physically active. So it was a pretty good crew of people that you got to go through flight training with and made lifelong friends. So, and then I guess the biggest test for me was when I learned you have to go through a service selection there, what you want to do in the Navy as far as flying goes. And I wanted to be a helicopter pilot, but that didn't work out. They only took the first two people, and they both wanted to be helicopter pilots. And so I got my second or third choice, which was airborne early warning. Oh. I figured if I was going to be in the Navy, I should be on a ship. So that's where those squadrons were located. And my first aircraft that I flew in the Navy, operational aircraft, was the E-1B. And it was at the end of its useful career. But the mission that we had in my Vietnam stint was a good one. We were, among other things, in charge of search air rescue. So we would check all of the Alpha flights in to feet dry, and then when they came out, we counted noses and make sure we got everybody back. And if we didn't, then we would coordinate the SAR to come in and pick up the survivors. Hopefully, they made it back to sea. Then it was easy. That was in the Navy jurisdiction, and then you sent the Navy helicopter out there and picked them up.
Yeah.
So I was fortunate. I got on the back end of one tour and on the front end of another tour. So total, I only had to spend about a year in or less than a year in the Gulf of Tonkin, and went through two workup exercises. And then I thought that I would be a airline pilot, but I didn't have enough hours. So
Really?
yeah, I think I had 1,370 hours when I left my airborne early warning squadron, and I needed 1,500. So I elected to go to the training command to become a flight instructor because I knew I would get a lot of flight hours. And I had taken the test to be an airline pilot, and I had selected the airline I wanted to go to. I wanted to go to Delta. They told me I didn't even have to get a new uniform. I just had to put different buttons on my Navy uniform and be good to go. But I got one of those calls from my detailer. He says, I got a really hard billet to fill. I said, well, I put in my papers. And he says, well, I just want to run this by you because you're the only guy I have right now on my board that's qualified to do this. And I said, oh, okay. Well, what is it? He says, well, I need an exchange pilot to go to Scotland and fly in the Royal Navy. Ooh. Well, I was a history major in college, and the thought that I might live in Europe for 30 months was overwhelming. So
yeah.
I elected to. You don't get to elect to do too many things in the service. You're usually told, but this time I actually took my papers back, and my wife and I trundled off to Scotland, and I was flying the British airplane, the Gannet, which was a horror show. It was it wasn't anything like anything I'd ever flown before. If I describe this thing, I know you'll kind of get a feel for how this might be an odd airplane. It had a counter-rotating propeller on the nose. So that means one propeller went one way and the other propeller went the other way. It had two motors, and they were called double Mambas. And one motor drove one propeller and the other motor drove the other propeller. It was a carrier airplane, and the radome, apart not being on the roof like the ones I used to be flying, was between its legs. It looked like a big pregnant guppy. And then in the back was two radar operators who did the same jobs as the guys in our Navy did.
Yeah.
But their equipment was pretty antiquated. But they all sounded like Winston Churchill. They all had a British accent. And they were really a fun group of guys to fly with, very professional. And that helped me get some carrier landings. I have about 900 carrier landings.
I was going to ask you about that's pretty impressive. I mean, and pilots talk about how difficult that can be. So I saw that and I said, wow, that's pretty impressive.
I have a bunch from my first tour as a Centurion on the Ticonderoga, and then a Centurion and a half on the HMS Ark Royal. And then when I was in the training command, I was the flight instructor that took the students and they did their elementary or their first carrier landings with me. And so you got to log their landings too. That was one of the benefits of flying with the new guys to the ship for the first time. And then I was fortunate enough to, at one point, to screen for command, and went out to East Coast and commanded an E2 squadron and got some more landings. And then I was in a float staff with 6th Fleet, and I got some more landings with the squadrons that were attached to that ship. So ended up with a whole bunch of carrier landings in my logbook, and that I'm kind of proud of, because that was that's what made Navy flying different than other flying, was landing on the back of that boat.
Yeah, I've often seen. I love military history myself, and I've often seen a number of documentaries where the pilots have talked about, landing on a carrier and how difficult and tricky it can be. And so, yeah, I mean, I can see you being very proud of that. Well, you also spent a little time at the Naval Academy and all that stuff before you retired, and was it 26 years you spent?
Yep, 26 years. So when I was coming back from Scotland, again, talking to the detailer, he said, well, gee, you have kind of a funny career now. I'm not sure what to do with you, but they need somebody like you at the Naval Academy. And I said, well, I don't know what's special. Why would they be interested in me? And he said, well, this is the year was 1980, and this is the year that the first women graduated from the Naval Academy. It's actually 1978, and so they wanted to put naval officers that weren't Naval Academy graduates in as company officers, because they would better understand the women at the Naval Academy than the naval officers that never experienced women at the Naval before.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's what I was told. In any case, I was really a duck out of water there. I couldn't even speak the language when I first got there. They have all of these midshipman words that are common to them, but it was a pretty interesting transition to trying to be responsible for them, and they really did a good job of teaching me, so I could do my job there. Without them helping me, I wouldn't have made it.
So it's kind of interesting you say that, because I had a similar experience with the Army, of course, on land, and when I became a first sergeant, I was in Europe, and I was in a signal battalion. And of course, I was not a signal NCO. I was a chemical operations NCO, but I got promoted. They offered me the first sergeant position of the headquarters company in the signal battalion. And I had spent the rest of my career pretty much to that point in combat arms units, armored cav, infantry, artillery. So you kind of got dropped into that experience with having female, midshipmen at the academy. And my experience as a first sergeant was the first time that I really had much experience with female soldiers. And there I was, the first sergeant. So the military has a tendency to do that kind of stuff to you, don't they?
They do. And I was really proud of my girls. They were up for everything, for every challenge that they were given. And I admired their courage and their stick-to-itiveness, because their way wasn't always easy.
Yeah. I mean, you see, I saw that, because this was back in the mid 90s when I was a first sergeant. So, it was still a challenge for a lot of the female military people and the soldiers that we had. And, I'm sure you saw a lot of the same stuff. So so what prompted you to retire? What was your decision?
Well, the Navy pretty much told me to get in. And so when they were done with me, they told me to get out.
Oh, okay.
They were doing a reduction in force at the time. And so they reduced the number of admirals' billets. And I don't know if I would have been selected for one of those anyway, but that made my chances a lot less.
Yeah.
So I got a phone call one afternoon from the admiral that was the head of the J6 at the Pentagon. And he said, well, I got some bad news for you, Jim. It looks like you're going to get passed over. And I thought, well, that's okay. I don't have any regrets about my naval career. I had a lot of fun. I felt like I did something useful, and I was ready to start life over as a civilian at that point. Again, with no regrets. I was happy with what I'd accomplished.
Well, I mean, it sounds like you had a really great career. I mean, flying those advanced early warning aircraft and, being an instructor and then being able to work at the Naval Academy. So, yeah, I mean, you had a really good career.
Yeah.
We're going to take a short. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
And commanded a squadron. Everybody wants to do that.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Just like me, I wanted to be a first sergeant before I retired, and I was able to do that. So, well, Jim, we're going to take just a short break. And when we come back on the other side, we will continue our discussion.
Okay.
In service of our nation, you gave everything you had. You sacrificed your comfort, your peace, and sometimes even your well-being. Over 3 decades, Hill and Ponton has helped to be a guiding light for veterans seeking their rightful disability benefits. When our heroes are in need, we are not just lawyers. We're an ally, a team who understands the struggles you faced. If you're a veteran seeking the benefits you deserve, let us stand with you on this journey, because every battle deserves a hero, and no hero should fight alone.
Living in a world filled with lunacy, it seems that stress and turmoil follow us everywhere we go. Perhaps it's gotten to the point where you wish you could turn off the distractions of daily living and have a good laugh. Well, we have a recommendation for you. Pick up a copy of The Dunce Cap, a humorous and satirical look at American society and the follies of our culture. Join the author Paul Holbert as he takes you on a trip through the nonsensical and often ridiculous practices of our everyday lives, from political correctness and our legal system to the folly of the media and our obsession with reality television. See how these and other outrageous practices of everyday people make us a perfect cast for the next slapstick sitcom. So go ahead, you know you need it. Take a frank look at the more nonsensical side of American society and see why we are prime candidates for the stool in the corner and the dunce cap that sits on top.
All right. Welcome back, everyone. You've been watching the WGSN-DB Going Solo Veterans Corner on the new streamingnetwork.com. And we've been talking tonight with retired Navy Captain Jim Porter, also a pilot. And he's been sharing some of his experiences while he was in the Navy. And after his 26-year career, Jim moved on. And Jim, I just wanted to ask you, how did you end up in Northern Virginia?
Well, my wife, as you know, had her own career in the Navy as a Navy nurse.
Yeah.
And she wasn't old enough to retire yet. So when I retired, I guess it was a couple years, I was going to wait for her. So we decided to live here in Northern Virginia and then use that 2 years or however long it was to decide where we wanted to finally end up. Yeah. But we really liked it here in Northern Virginia. It's green, the people are hospitable. And at the time, Manassas was kind of rural. It was and honestly, one of the things that you don't get in the service is this being part of a community that doesn't move. So it's nice when you go to the barbershop and you've been there a couple of times and the guy actually knows your name, and the post office guy, the postman knows you, and you can go to the restaurant, and that was an experience that I didn't have in the Navy. So we actually put down roots here, and it was nice. Joined a church. Have neighbors and friends. So Manassas has been good to us.
Yes, I know you spent another career teaching at Osborne Park High School. here in Prince William County. The other interesting thing you have to share with us is that you actually started a Naval Junior Reserve Training Corps program there, didn't you?
Well, it was me and another guy. It's just always a partnership. Usually it's an officer and an enlisted guy that takes on one of these units. But when I applied at Osborne Park, I really liked Osborne Park. It had the right feel. It had the right academic focus, and the kids were nice. And I'd interviewed at, I think, 5 schools, and Osborne Park was the one I wanted to go to. But there was another guy that interviewed the same time as me. He was a Marine colonel, and he already had some JROTC experience under his belt. So the decision makers at Osborne Park had selected him. So I was disappointed. Then I got a phone call that said, well, we got authorization for 2 officers in our program. So if you want to come and work with the colonel, you can. We'll hire you too. So I didn't know anything, and he did. So that sounded like a good move for everybody. So, and then he was the guy what was in charge for 2 years, and then he decided that his interest in teaching school was in getting the kids' attention early, so that they didn't make major life mistakes. Particularly in high school. And he decided that high school was too late. The kids needed his attention that were 6th and 7th graders. And that's where you needed to form some study habits and some goals in life and some manners. Because we were both thinking that manners was pretty important. It helps you in every walk of life. And so he decided to teach middle school, and then he left me at Osborne Park to run the JRTC unit that we had both started.
Yeah, I mean, so you spent, my goodness, you spent 18 years there teaching, didn't you?
I did, and it was more fun than almost anything I could have done. I never did anything that was as satisfying as being the JROTC instructor, to be a school teacher. You know, kids, when they start high school in the 9th grade, and they graduate when they're seniors, they go through this. I mean, you mature from being a little kid to being a man old enough to serve in the nation's armed services. And in that period of time, some things happen in your life. Your parents get divorced, your grandparents die. You have all kinds of challenges. You have runaway hormones, all that stuff. And that's where a mentor is so important, that you can actually affect somebody's life at an early age and make a difference. And when you see that light come on in somebody's face and they figure out what they want to do, or they take on, and they realize that there's somebody that's important, that's to have a little bit of that, a portion of that is very satisfying. I really did enjoy teaching.
Yeah, I have to tell you, I had another high school junior ROTC instructor on Army. He was from Ocean Springs, Mississippi, and he spoke very similar to what you said, and how important he thought it was, the influence that he thought the young people needed. And he kind of said the same thing. He talked about how enjoyable it was doing that job after leaving the service and taking over there and enjoying what he was doing, and talked about how, they were trying to influence the young people at an early age and teach them some of those things that they thought they would need. So, yeah, I think you guys definitely perform a vital service in those roles in the high schools. But you retired in 2010, and you currently are still serving as the head of the board of directors for the Freedom Museum here in Manassas, Virginia. Tell us a little bit about the museum and what you guys do here.
Okay, well, we're a little storefront museum. We started in 1999 collecting things for it. And the things that we've collected all come from our local community. The people that served in the armed services from Prince William County and Manassas Park have brought their things in here, or their families have. And we put them on our timeline that starts with World War I and goes through to the present time. So probably the most significant thing that we have here in our museum is our local heroes wall. And that's all the guys that died in all the wars from World War I to present.
Yeah.
And their names are on this wall, and we have researched them all, and we have we have the background information on each one of them. And we have Gold Star moms and dads that come in here, and they see their kids on the wall, and the community comes in here, and people have a realization that freedom isn't free, that people like you and I put on the uniform, represent our country, and some of us go in harm's way. So again, the museum for me has been pretty satisfying. We changed the focus of our museum in 2011 when I took over as the president. We were at the airport at that time, and we were focused mostly on airplanes, and we did air shows, and it was fun. We had a good time. But then the airport was growing, and they wanted to start scheduled airline there. So the museum had to find a new place to be. And so there was a sign up in the window here on the Hibbs and Giddings building across from the pavilion. And we leaped on it because we knew this was a great location.
Yeah.
And so we've been here ever since, and our focus has been on our local community. And the people that work in the museum here with me are all veterans or families of veterans. And we talk to veterans when they come in here and their families, and people talk about their service. And sometimes people hear what their dad or their grandfather did, and they're surprised. And they said, "Gee, I didn't know you did that. I didn't know you were in Vietnam, or I didn't know that you were on a ship." And it's really kind of fun to watch the appreciation for family members in here, for veteran family members in here. And it's a good part of being in this community in Manassas. There's over 400,000 veterans here, and so we're trying to.
Wait a minute. Let me.
I'm sorry, 40,000. I got a little carried away.
Okay, no, I was going to say, but still, 40,000 veterans in Manassas is still a large number.
Well, a lot of us are at the Pentagon or at Quantico or Fort Belvoir when we end our naval career or our service careers, and we end up in the local area here. So there's a bunch of us, and all of them have a story to tell. And so the museum, we're hoping, is that place that helps tell their story, or a place where they can tell their story.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I remember when the museum was out at the airfield. In fact, that was the first time I ever saw it. And then when the bookstore that was there closed down, and I saw you guys moving in there, I went, oh yeah, this should be interesting. And I really like what you guys have done. And in fact, I'll just mention one of our local veterans, Pete Anastasiou, who you know very well.
I do.
Pete is now what, I think 103?
Something like that.
Yeah, and he's still here. He was on my show several years ago. Right around his 100th birthday is when he was on my show. And he's still here locally and still kind of getting around sometimes. And I know he's come to visit you at the museum. So it's really great to see what you guys are doing in the community and the displays that you have there. Now, let me ask you, are you guys involved? I would imagine you're pretty intimately involved with the signs that go up on the light posts downtown around Memorial Day and different places like that of all the veterans who were killed that were natives of Manassas. Their pictures and stuff are up along the streets.
Yeah, there's a veteran here named Jerry Martin. He's the guy that organized the banners and that go on the light poles on Veterans Day and Memorial Day. And the museum here, we have that's where most of the information and the pictures come from.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought that was really something else the first time I saw that they had taken the time to do that, and then to create those large vinyl posters that go up with all their pictures and their name and everything on it. But I mean, you guys have a pretty impressive display in there from all the various wars, and I think you have who's one of your other more prominent people on display in there?
I think probably we have everybody from that was privates and corporals to admirals and generals. Probably one of the most moving displays we have is Admiral Shoemaker, who was 8 years and 1 day a POW in the Hanoi Hilton during the Vietnam War. And he has a panel here that describes his captivity. And then he's a friend of mine, and he brought a brick from the Hanoi Hilton that's on display here, and some of his items that he had as a POW. And the museum is full of stories, and one that he told me that I thought was really moving. It's short. He had a roommate of sorts. He had a cell, and the guy behind him, there was a wall between the two cells, and so he never saw the guy. But they communicated with the tap code that the POWs created for themselves. That's a great read if you ever want to know something about the POWs.
Yeah.
But anyway, he was that guy's roommate for 3 years and never saw him, but they were the best of friends. Yeah. And that guy died in captivity. It was a sad, one of his saddest days to lose his friend. But anyway, we have lots of things in here. Some happy and some sad. You know how sailors and soldiers are when there's always something that they can get in trouble about and laugh about later. So lots of those stories here.
Yeah, I've kind of been there and done that a few times during my military career. Yeah, it's. I just thought it was. I don't know. I mean, I think it's such a great thing that you guys are doing with that museum, and despite the size of it not being very large, you got a lot of stuff in there and a lot of information and a lot of history in there from all those wars.
Yeah, the biggest challenge is to make it interesting and not cluttered.
Yeah. I mean, but it's so great what you guys have been able to do with that museum, and having been in there myself several times to see what you have in there, I was just, I was really impressed with what you guys have done. So, do you have any upcoming plans for the museum? Anything new or?
Well, we're kind of constrained by the size of what we have here. We have some rolling stock. We have the MASH ambulance that was actually in the movie MASH, and we have the nose section of a B-25 that people have seen in the parades and different events that we're in, and we have a Vietnam Jeep era Jeep that we have, but we can't show them in our museum because it's not big enough.
Yeah.
But I would like to tell you about our fundraiser, if that's okay.
Sure. Yeah, go ahead.
So if you go on our webpage, freedommuseum.org, you'll see on there that we're going to do a sock hop. And for those of you that are not old enough to remember what a sock hop is, that was in my era when you wanted to have a high school dance, you would do it in the gym. But then the basketball coach would get mad because your shoes, people had hard shoes in those days, would scuff up the floor. or you get rocks under them and grind up the floor. So the coach would always say, not in my gym, unless everybody takes their shoes off. So then you would take your shoes off when you came to the gym, and that's why they called it a sock hop. You would dance with the girls and the guys in their stocking feet. So we're going to have one of those, and it's going to be over by it's going to be here in Manassas, over by All Saints Church there at the Knights of Columbus Hall on September 27th. And so if you go to our webpage, you can find tickets, and it'll be a typical gala thing with dancing. The food is really good. We've got a really good DJ that plays music from the 50s and 60s and 70s. And we have a prize for people that wear costume, poodle skirt or whatever. There'll be some people from the car show, bring some muscle cars to park out front. We try to do it up and get you in the mood to really have a lot of fun that evening. So September.
I'm sorry. What was the date of that again?
September the 27th, from 5 to 10, I guess. And all the details are on our webpage, or you can come by the museum here. Tickets aren't very expensive. You can buy a table for 10 for $5.50. And if you've been to a gala, I don't think you're going to find one cheaper than that. Yeah. But we have a lot of fun. All of our friends and neighbors in the community come, and it's all to support the museum.
Yeah, that sounds pretty neat. It'd be interesting to see if enough NA people show up in poodle skirts and all that other kind of stuff, right? Yeah,
it was a lot of fun. We had a lot of hula hoop contests and all kinds of stuff. The people have asked me, how much does it cost to go to the museum? The entry into the museum is free. It's every day, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday when we're open. We ask if you would leave a donation, but if you don't have enough for a donation, you can still come to the museum. This is your history here, your local history, and I shouldn't charge you to see it.
No, I mean, that's good to know. So, for those people around the community here in Northern Virginia, you really should go over there and take a look. And Jim, I got to tell you, before we go, first, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to spend with us this evening and share your experiences and what you guys were doing with that museum here in Manassas. Before we go, I just want to ask you, if you had one thought or one message you'd like to share with the audience, what would it be?
I think probably the message would be you're never done. You still need a reason to get up in the morning. You need to find something worthwhile to do. And you need to feel like you're giving back in your community, or whether it's in the service or whether it's in the civilian community. And you should look forward to getting up every day with the challenges that are in front of you, because you're never done.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand that, because I have that feeling myself, and that's why I enjoy doing the show and doing some of the volunteer work that I do, for some of the veterans organizations. And so, yeah, that's a good point. So those of you who are out there in the community, whether you're older like Jim and myself or not, and whether you're still working, there's still a lot of things you could help with and volunteer. So just keep that in mind. Well, Jim, again, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to spend with us this evening. And, we want to wish you again a wonderful wedding anniversary. We'll let you get off so you can go spend some time with your bride. And, I will be seeing you, I'm sure, in the not too distant future. So we really appreciate your help tonight.
Okay. You're always welcome here at the museum, Paul. And thanks for today.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And for those of you watching the show, as you know, we provide information to the audience, whether it's veterans or their families, at the end of each show. And I wanted to share something with you here that I recently really started delving into. And I got to tell you, especially for us veterans, as we get older, If you've got a family, they're going to be dealing with, at some point your death. And as a veteran, you can go, we've talked about before, going to the VA website to find out your eligibility. If you're interested in being buried at Arlington or one of the other VA cemeteries. But I will tell you that you can actually get pre-eligibility verification with the VA, so that when the time comes, your family does not have to deal with that. They already have you screened, and they have you in the records as being eligible and for what type of burial you're eligible for. You can see the website there at va.gov/burials, and you'll be able to find it under pre-need eligibility. You can actually submit the application online. And veterans, you just need an electronic copy of your DD-214. Fill out the application. Tell them what VA cemetery you're interested in being buried in, and submit it, and they will process it. And then if you meet the requirements, they will then mail actually a letter to you at home for your family to keep, so that when the time comes, all they have to do is present that death certificate to the VA, to the cemetery of where you asked to be buried, and they will take care of the rest. So it's one of those things that you can do ahead of time to save your family the burden of trying to do it when they're dealing with your departure from the family. So keep that in mind. Good information. It's easy to do. Check it out. All right. And we want to thank our audience for joining us this evening. As you know, you've been watching the WGSN-DB Going Solo Veterans Corner. And as always, veterans, we want to thank you for your service, and families, thank you for the support of those veterans. And we hope to see you on our next show.